Let's go to the first question here, all the way in Kuala Lumpur. This is Jonathan in KL. How do you stop the influence from the outside people, right? Okay, so this is one of the things we talked about. And it's really hard to not be affected. And the answer is, it is true. It is very hard not to be affected. It is. And you got to understand this too. The reason why you're infected, not infected, sorry, it's not coronavirus. You're not infected, I'm sorry, wrong word. I got a stuffy nose. So not infected, the reason why you're affected, okay? The reason why you're affected by people on the outside is because usually we really respect or love these people, right? So like, it's true. When you really respect or love someone, what happens is you begin to listen to them more, or you look up to them. So there's one of the reasons why we're influenced by the people around us, right? Another reason why we're influenced by the people around us is because of a lack of respect for ourselves too, right? We respect people on the outside more than I respect myself. And one of the things that I would do, Jonathan, is it is the building of myself, the development of myself, the confidence of myself becomes very, very important. Because as long as I'm not confident in myself, or if I'm not self-aware or know who I am, the problem with that is then we're looking for ourselves, we're looking for our confidence through people around us, right? What does confidence give us? Confidence is very important because confidence gives you the one thing that everyone looks for is value. Okay, so if you're getting value, if you know the value of yourself and you're confident you have that value, then it doesn't matter what anyone else says. The hard part is when you don't know the value of yourself, the problem happens is we look for value from others. So if everyone accepts me, then I'm valuable. It's true, right? So if I said if I'm going to sell this phone, but nobody wants it, then what happens to the value of the phone? The value goes down. But if I sell this phone and everyone wants it, then the value goes up. In the same way too, this is why a lot of people just follow the crowd. Because if everyone's drinking, then I start drinking, I'm like, yeah, let's drink together. Then you feel accepted by tons of people. And you feel like your value goes up. As a group, your value does go up. But your self-value is much different in that situation. So a lot of it has to do with exercising your self-confidence and who you are, knowing yourself better and better each day, right? And that's probably going to be another one we can take a look at, another topic we can look at another time too. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to Singapore. And we're going to talk to Sarah. Sarah in Singapore. There are some people I'm always disappointed by because they don't listen well. Okay, or obedience, right? They don't listen well. They never really do their responsibility, so should I keep relying on them? And the answer is, no, you don't need to rely on them. Why? Because basically, if someone proves themselves to be unreliable, then if you keep asking them, knowing that they're unreliable, do you actually think something's going to change if they are constantly unreliable? It kind of makes no sense, right? Which means that you, like, if it was me, if it's too much, like if it's extreme, you want to talk to them. And if they become, someone is unreliable, then you shouldn't rely on them. Or you should kind of give them the final, like a final warning, like, hey, I've been hurt a couple times because I asked you to do this for me. And, I want to give you another chance, and I want to give you a couple more chances too, but I just really want you to know how I feel. And then at that point, if the person really understands and they're really trying hard, and you can see that they're trying hard even though they fail every once in a while, then it's actually okay because you see that they're trying. But if you kind of don't tell them anything, and what happens is you kind of enable them to do that because they make the mistake, you say nothing, so they think it's okay. You can't let it be okay. You got to talk to them about it after and say, hey, I'm not too happy because of this, and this. And it's something that partly is your responsibility, right? A lot of times people have bad bosses because you allow the boss to be that way and you don't say anything about it. Right? But if there's that one person, like, when people meet each other for the first time, it's very awkward and you have more respect because you don't know each other. So if a boss says something and you go, hey, I don't appreciate it. I'm not going to point a finger, right? I don't appreciate it when you talk to me like this. Then what happens is they will be a little bit shocked, but because you don't know each other very well, what happens is they have to respect it. They have to. The worst thing that can happen is if you keep letting them do it and then later on you tell them, but you've already allowed the relationship to go that way. This is why when you meet people, whether it's bosses, friends, family, whatever it is, usually the relationship, like the what do you got, the lines, the border, The boundaries. There you go. The boundaries of your relationship are usually formed at the very beginning. What you allow, what you don't allow. And people understand that. Yeah. And that's the best time to do it. That's when people respect each other the most. Okay? So, let's move to the next question. We're going to go to... Next question is Vicky Laguarda from the Philippines. How do you overcome peer pressure, especially from people you care deeply about? And like I was saying before too, one of the biggest reasons why we get into peer pressure is because we care about these people, right? And we want to be liked by these people too. So the question is, how do you overcome peer pressure? Okay? And usually, if it's someone you really, really care deeply about or someone that you love, it doesn't take a lot. Like, I would say it would take one serious and stern talk to set the guidelines. Because if you, like, one of the things I do tell people is this. When people, usually Vicky, when people usually ask these questions, it means that the peer pressure has been going on for a long time, usually, right? Because that's when it becomes peer pressure, because everyone's asking you, everyone's saying it, so it goes on for a while. One thing I do recommend for all people is talk to people when it's small. And that means that, for instance, you know when someone does something to you and it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal, and you let it go, you shouldn't let it go. You should kind of just say, hey, I don't appreciate this. Because when it's not a big deal, this is when you can talk about it easiest. Why? Because there's nothing emotional attached to you about that. It's like, hey, I just want to say, it doesn't really hurt me right now, but I know that in the future, I just don't want to hold this against you, right? I don't really like it when people do this. Like, oh, I'm so sorry kind of thing, right? So usually it's better to talk to people when it's small and not a big deal. If you wait till it's too big, what happens is too much emotion is there and too much has been built up for you to say something, right? So Vicky, when it comes to peer pressure, people you care deeply about, a lot of people will think that because I care deeply about them, I should let it go. And the answer is no. If you care deeply about someone, you should talk to them. Doesn't that make more sense? Because I care about them more deeply. Like, I communicate more with people I'm not close to than the people I am. You should communicate with them a lot more than people you don't know, right? You shouldn't just let things go, but you should tell them about it, okay? Thank you, Vicky, all the way from the Philippines. Next question is from Yuan Yu in Singapore. What can you do if it's difficult to obey certain things in life? Okay, well, it really depends what it is. Because there's some things we shouldn't obey. There's some things we just shouldn't obey. And that's like, bad things. Things that are against our conscience. Things that are against the law. Criminal things. But I am assuming, Yuan Yu, that you're saying that obey certain things in life, because it's very, very general. I'm assuming it's something that's good for you, but it's good for you and you should do it, but you don't. And the biggest thing that you have to do is you need to train the muscle of whatever it is you're trying to do or you're not doing, right? So whatever you're weak in, like for instance, if your muscle's weak, you can't lift as much, but you're training it and training until you can lift heavy things. In the same way too, the things that you should be doing, right? You should be doing it. You're never going to get better at it if you don't keep training it. Like, when you're like, oh, darn it, I should have done that. Then what you have to do is you have to start early. Just start it at that point. You got to just start it right then. And you have to start working on that muscle of whatever the thing that you're trying to do. And you have to work it like a muscle constantly over and over and over again so you get better and better and better at it, right? Whether it's waking up early in the morning, whether it's doing your homework early, whether it's not procrastinating, whether it's getting, not waiting to the last minute to do your work project or whatever of those things. Or like for some people just have terrible organization, like scheduling stuff. And that's when we have to schedule everything that we can. And that's something the next day, just go out and buy a scheduler, right? Or go buy electronic schedule or something that you can use to keep your mind on what you're supposed to be doing, all right? So yeah, if you're a little bit more detailed, then I have a better idea. But it's like, how do you obey certain things in life? And I'm like, what is a thing? Right? So that's something that you need to kind of be a little bit more detailed about, and then it's much easier to answer. All right, thank you so much for the question. Let's go to the next question all the way in KL. It is Naomi Ho. And she says, how to deal with people that lack obedience, especially when the task given to them will affect their team's members. Yes. So one of the biggest things that we have to understand is there has to be a lot of accountability. Accountability. That's a big thing, which means that for people who are terrible at obedience and not doing things, you have to check on them more. Why? Because they're terrible at it. So you might have this person in a team project. They're terrible. They never do it on time, and it affects the rest of the team. You can't just say to them, hey man, you're making it hard for the rest of us. You're making us look bad, right? And the reason why you can't say that is because they feel guilty, but the thing is, they're not good at it yet, which means they need help. And if they need help, and if you really want to do well, yes, everyone lacks in a certain area. And sometimes we're like this, well, why do I have to like keep calling him? And why do I have to keep doing it like this? Why do I have to do it like this? And we're like kind of like, why do I have to do? Why? Because the things that you're weak at, you would appreciate it if someone was helping you out with that too. Right? Hold them accountable. And if it's like, for instance, something that's a bigger project, the one thing I always tell people in team projects is the best thing to do is you need to have deadlines. Like you really have to have deadlines, like a real deadline. Hey guys, phase 1 should be done by next Tuesday, and then it should be done by Thursday. But haven't you ever had those meetings like this? Hey, okay, so we need to get that stuff done. Who wants to do it? You want to do it? All right, cool. Get that done as soon as possible. Get it done as soon as possible. You want to get that? Okay, get that done as soon as possible. And get that done as soon as... There's no deadline. You have no idea when you're supposed to get it done. What does as soon as possible mean? And then when they come to say, hey man, I haven't gotten it done yet. Oh, don't worry man, I understand, so just get it done as soon as possible. No, you have to set guidelines, like milestones. Need it done by this time, by this time, by this time. And someone like in a team, there should be like a director that sees and makes sure that everyone is doing their thing on time and not just waiting for that last minute. Hey, did everyone get it done? You didn't get it done. Oh no, we're not gonna get it done. Right? It's better to do it earlier. The earlier the better, okay? Thank you, Naomi in KL. Let's go over to Yiling, also in KL. Yiling says, some obedience contradicts each other. How can we know which to obey? Okay, so I need an example of which obedience, like, is it when your mom says do this and your dad says don't do that? Like, is that the contradiction? Like, I'm trying to think about which ones it is. Like, your body says murder someone, but the law says don't murder someone. Like, I'm not sure what that actually means, right? So some obedience contradicts each other, and some things can contradict each other, but if there is a contradiction, I would go by priority. For instance, right? Let's say I'm trying to lose weight, but my body says, let's eat. Then, am I going to listen to my body? Well, should I obey my body at that time? Well, if you've already eaten, then you don't need to eat again, right? You don't need to, right? So there's some things that you got to look at. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. It'd be better if I knew exactly what you're talking about, but it's better to, if there's two things that contradict each other, you're going to have to go by priorities. Priority, which means situation and circumstance, and which one, like for instance, one is criminal and one is non-criminal, right? One is for school and one is for family. Right? Like obedience to going to school, but then your mom's in the hospital. I think the mom should be more important and your priority should be higher and you skip school, right? So you do want to look at priority and situation. Because if your mom's just like, hey, let's go out for lunch, but you're like, you have a class, then I'd go to class. But if my mom's visiting me all the way from Canada, comes to Malaysia and says, let's go for lunch, I'm going to lunch. Right? Because she came all the way from Canada. So it's different depending on situation and circumstance too. So you have to take a look at that also. So let's take a look at the last question for today, all the way from Korea and Mongolia. It is Ichigo. And Ichigo says, how should I help others to find the value in themselves? Okay. How do you help others to find value in themselves? Now that's a good question, right? Because now, some of the people you might meet in life, the value is dependent upon what other people think of them. Now, I'm not saying that's completely wrong. It's not completely wrong, right? Like, for instance, if I want to be a better person and I hang out with people that are better than me, that have better morals and values, right? And I'm looking for their approval, it's actually not that bad because I'm trying to become better and I'm gonna obey and listen to what those people, and I wanna get their approval so I can become a better person too, right? So that's why a lot of different things are very, very dependent on situation and circumstance. But if I'm just obeying these people because I wanna be cool and they're doing all these bad things, that's not a good situation. But like I said, in one situation is, I like these people because they're good people and I wanna be good like them, then what they think about you also makes a difference to you too, right? And you want to help people to find their value. There's tons of different ways, but encourage them a lot. And if you have faith, of course, pray for them a lot, encourage them a lot, and you want to help them to do what? Help them to do things on their own also. Because sometimes people are very, very dependent on others. And when they become dependent on others, they're always following what the other people do. But sometimes it's good for us to ask them, hey, we're going to do what you want. But you're not going to say it like that. But you're going to be like, hey, what do you want to do today? Let's go do that. And we can find out the things that they like to do, things that they're good at, right? So you want to kind of foster and nurture it. But in the end, we can't really help people. Like literally, valuing yourself only comes from them. We're just kind of encouraging and nurturing and fostering that to happen. But ultimately, it comes from yourself. So technically, you can't literally make people value themselves, right? But we can nurture, foster it, and we can encourage it to happen, okay? All right, so those are the questions for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this second edition of the Taco Tuesday. I hope you guys had a wonderful time listening to the story of Samuel. What is the best thing to do? And I hope that you guys will listen to this again and really help yourselves to change your lives even more. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys again. See you next week, Thursday or even Saturday. Bye-bye.
But we are on different levels.